mean, without my daddy fighting, or all of our daddies fighting, we wouldn't be a member post 30 cents. We're going to remember. And our little post is our little post. We love and we hope you enjoy your meal. And in my saying, that's all I have to say.
Thanks for being here. And thank you guys for bringing awareness across the country.
Anytime,
It's
come
really
back,
been a
I'll
big
be
deal,
here.
and we appreciate that.
This is our crew here.
So did all of you, all you were involved in making or delivering somehow the food?
Somehow, some way.
That was amazing.
This is kind of a trial one. We've got 700 people who feed and coffee.
Awesome.
I got sent right over there.
Thank you guys for doing what you do.
Thank you so much.
Go back in a second.
Well, we'll start our part, so you guys can sit down. You guys can sit down and relax and eat, or whatever you want to do.
You guys got
Yeah, it's gonna, yeah, if you'd like to help, that's what fun too. Pronunciation is always important.
We just generally have the runners read them because they've
We
been
have our
reading them all day.
runners. Yeah.
So they're familiar with the ranks and all that.
I just like the ladies for the
Absolutely.
Yeah, they did amazing.
Wonderful.
If I could have everybody's attention, I'm gonna just talk for a few minutes and then we're gonna have a ceremony is what we do every night that we run. And if you guys wanna sit down, because I may talk for a couple of minutes, and then we're gonna read names as well for a couple of minutes. I mean, you don't have to stand up. Maybe if you wanna sit down. I wanna share with you a little bit about what we're doing and why we're here, give you a little bit more insight into the importance of what you already understand. But I will tell you, first of all, that the opportunity, the opportunity, for us to come here to Holbrook and be welcomed by your post is, means more to us than you can imagine. Because this mission is a very difficult one. It's very grueling. It's very, physically.
Can we have your runners stand up?
I'll introduce them. And they'll be up here reading in a minute, so you'll see them all. But what, the opportunity to come after a long, hard day and just be in a place where we're welcome and we have amazing nourishment, is so important to us. And what you guys did, I will tell you, we just finished our 23rd day of running. And I can't remember, what's our last mile, Kristen?
1,085.
1,085 miles we've run in the last 3 weeks.
Right.
1,085 miles. And every night, at the end of our day, and some days end earlier than others. Some days we may run 4 miles. Today we ran 52 miles. And so it varies, around 50 miles a day. And that could put us to 5:30 or 6:30 in the evening, because we're only running 5 miles an hour. So every 5 miles we add is another hour, of our journey for that day. And we don't want to end too late because we have a lot of things to do to get the RVs cleaned up and ourselves cleaned up and ready, because at 5 o'clock in the morning, we're back up, getting ready to start running again every day. So we get very little sleep, and there's a lot of work that has to happen on either end. So to come to a place like this post here, and just to be welcomed, and not have to do anything but just feel like we're home, in a sense, that we're family, means a tremendous amount to us. And over the last 3 weeks, we've been able to, most every single, except for 2, maybe 4 nights, where a couple nights there wasn't any place for us to be. We have been at an American Legion post almost every single night. And I will tell you that your post in Holbrook has provided the best variety of meal that we have had our entire trip so far.
And the grill.
And I say that without hesitation. That is just an amazing spread back there. And I wish we had a lot more people here than we do, but some days we have a lot more, and then some days there's only a few of us. And so we're getting up into the, the higher elevations, and as we head towards Utah, it's harder and harder to find runners that are willing to commit a day's time and drive to meet us so far and then run with us all day and then have to get back again. So it's getting harder and harder as we get further away from towns.
You're in Arizona, the towns are way far away.
And they're way far away. Right, so yesterday we had, today we have Linda here from Holbrook, and we're grateful for so you guys were represented today. All day long she ran with us since 7 this morning. Yesterday we had an entire group from the White Mountain Apache tribal reservation, and so there was over a dozen runners yesterday. So we had a bigger group yesterday, and none of them came back today. So we had Linda. We tried to step in.
She got hard.
She got hard, absolutely. And actually we had two other runners who left us. They had to catch a plane, and then we have Kristen, who's our core runner, and she's probably going to do most of the miles for the next few days. And then we have our pitch hit runners, which are our two photographers, Keller and Teddy.
They run?
And they run. How many miles did you guys run today? 4. Okay, 4 apiece. So they ran 4 apiece.
Oh, that's all.
So they helped. They helped. The other day they ran 14 apiece. So it really depends on. Tomorrow you guys may be running 14 apiece.
I'll do 20.
And then we've got our family who's with us. I mean, those that are driving the RVs and keeping the advanced vehicles going, and the pace cars, and the support structure for the runners to make sure that everybody's safe and that they're eating okay during the day, and we have all of our needs met. We've had 2 flat tires today, and actually we changed out 3 tires, but we had 2 that had nails in them because we're driving with those.
Standing on the shoulder.
Driving on the shoulder almost all day long. So we have our support crew. We have Dan and Josie. Raise your hand, Josie. And Paulette and Augie. And who did I miss? And Laura. Raise your hand. So what are we doing? Why are we here eating your wonderful food? I would just stay the night, and I think we'd just like to camp out for a while and take a rest. But we decided, as an organization, the Honor and Remember organization, that it is important to make sure that those service members who have given their lives to our country are not forgotten. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Because as family, the family that have lost these service members, they never forget, right? Their loved ones are always in their heart. For the rest of America, we kind of tend to forget why we have the freedoms that we have. And so it's very easy to get on with our lives and not realize that men and women are dying for our country, and we should be appreciative of that. And so we thought that the best way of doing that was to gather as many names as we possibly could, comprehensively every name that we could possibly gather. And so we started with the USS Cole on October 12, 2000, and we have compiled a list that now includes 20,000 service members who have died while in uniform or as a result of serving. And so those 20,000 names have been put together and organized into a route through 19 states over 5 months that cover about 6,100 miles. And those 6,100 miles, every mile, and we're not just running, some people do things differently. We're not just running for the fallen and we're just running across America. No, we are taking every one of those names and we've identified a mile marker and we're stopping every mile and we're calling out loud the names of service members who died on a particular day. So by the time we get to Arlington, we'll have run a mile stop, run a mile stop, run a mile stop, about 10 hours a day, all the way through to Arlington Cemetery, where every one of those 20,000 names will have been said out loud. Not only to us, who are standing at the markers every mile, but we also have it on the internet, live. So as long as we have a signal, anybody in the world can hear us calling out these heroes mile after mile after mile. Nothing has ever been done in the history of this country as significant as this is. Because when we're done, every one of these men and women will be recognized. And not only that, but their families. Some of the families are here, Steve and his bride. I'm terrible at names.
Okay.
And you and Tanya and Alyssa. Thank you, Alyssa. They're Gold Star families, and they came all the way from Missouri to be at their son's marker today, and it happened to be in Holbrook.
Thank you. Nice.
And so it meant enough to them to be out here to find us and to find his marker so that we might honor him today. And another father was out here. He came all the way from North Carolina, and he found us a few miles before we called his son's name out loud. And so families are traveling, whatever distance it is, in order to hear us call their loved one's name out loud. Why? Because they know it's important that not they never forget, but that we never forget. And so if we can call one more name out loud and we can get one more family to know that America is listening, the significance of that is beyond words. And so this is our goal, and this is what we're going to continue to do, whether it be raining or sun shining or 100 degrees, or today 30-mile-an-hour winds. Can you imagine? These runners are not just running, they're carrying a full-size flag while they're running. So you can imagine the resistance that brings at 30 miles an hour. And they won't take the flag and hold it down, and clamp it. They want that flag flying free as a reminder.
You're going east, so you're going to get blown the right direction.
That's awesome.
So I want to tell you the significance of that, because and the meaning of what it is that we're trying to achieve. And the only reason we're doing it, we're not doing it to raise money. We're only doing it to raise the awareness that all of these men and women have given their lives, these 20,000 plus, and we keep adding names because we're not done yet. So we're running all the way to Arlington. We're not going to get to Arlington until August the 5th. So the entire time we're running, we're still adding casualties to the end because we're running in the sequence of date of death. So we started with 2000, we're up to 2004 now, January of 2004, after 3 weeks. And we just keep consecutively adding dates until we get to Arlington. So any casualty that happens now is actually being added to the end. All the way into Arlington, where at that point where we have our final ceremony, we hope to read the very last name of the man or woman who died at that moment. So that's why I say this is the most comprehensive fallen veteran tribute ever conceived. And it's not a pride thing, but I will tell you that being hosted, by the Post here is historic. This is historic for you guys. We're not doing this again. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We've been planning this for 2.5 years. And so it's not like we're going to do this again next year. It's taken such a tremendous amount of organization. It's just been unbelievable. And sometimes it's just last minute, you know, trying to reach somebody to say, hey, we're coming through. But once we start reading the names tonight, and we're going to get ready to do that. And we were at post 26 last night in, where did we start?
Snowflake.
Snowflake, thank you. Snowflake, Taylor. I think it was 26.
Down the street.
Yeah, just down the street, 50 some miles. Which we, you know, it took shoe leather to get here. But one thing I didn't think about last night, and you know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as we're going through these posts and we're reading this significant amount of names, I want you to think that this may be one of the very few times in this post history where that many fallen service members were read at one time. You know, it's going to be very significant. And so as you listen to these names, I want you to think about the fact that we're honoring these men and women that died. What's our date range?
December 28th, 2003 to February 20th, 2004.
Okay. So from the end of December to the beginning of February, we had 201 casualties. And those 201 casualties are those that we ran for today and will be read tonight. Now, when we read these names, they may seem like they're just names. You know, they're just a list of names, like you'd read them off, you know, off a wall. But please remember that every one of these men and women we read off have a mom and dad, you know, have a family, and that those families aren't here with us. And those families may not have heard those names called today. Most likely they didn't. So what you're doing here tonight is you're representing those families. You are listening to those names for them and standing in for them. And it's a lot of names. It's going to take 20 minutes or so to get through all these names. But these names are significant. And in some cases, these names, this may be the last time these names are called out loud. And so it's very important. We take this very seriously, this mission. And that every mile that we stop, we have a mini ceremony. And in that ceremony, we say, those, at this mile, we honor those service members who lost their lives on a particular date. We read that date, and then we read those names from that date. And then we plant flags in the ground for each one of those names for that date. And then our runners will come to attention and render a salute to those names that were called out. And that is reverently and respectfully and consistently done mile after mile, hour after hour, day after day, and now week after week. And so it's very, very reverently done. And I think that's all I've said enough. So if I could have my runners up here, and my partial runners and my regular runners. You gotta read one bit. I would rather not read it. Okay. All right. I can read. No. Okay.
Please silence your phones.
Wait a minute. What?
Senior Airman Colin Aaron Fletcher.
Oh.
Sergeant Kurt E. Jordan Jr. Oh. United States Army. Captain Ernesto M. Bianca, or Blanco. United States Army. Private First Class Ray D. Servo, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Charles Michael Panzica, United States Army. Master Sergeant Abden Manuel Padilla II, United States Air Force. Staff Sergeant Stephen Matthew Dietz, United States Air Force. First Lieutenant Molly Louise Cook, United States Air Force. Specialist Justin W. Pollard, United States Army. Specialist Jonathan Paul Moore, United States Army. Specialist James Irvin Glynn, United States Army. Tech Sergeant Raymond Scott Fox, United States Air Force. Specialist Andre Lamont Berry, United States Army. Lieutenant Julie N. Hall, United States Navy. Private Michael John DeBall, United States Army. Sergeant Dennis Anthony Correll, United States Army. Commander Peggy N. Mass, United States Navy. Petty Officer Second Class Nathaniel Anton Potter Jr., United States Navy. Chief Senior Command Sergeant Major James Stacy Adams, United States Army. Captain Eric Thomas Paliwoda, United States Army. Specialist Mark S. Seaton, United States Army. Captain Kimberly N. Hampton, United States Army. Specialist Solomon C. Banganyan, United States Army. Colonel Jeffrey Peter Cavolius, United States Army. Senior Airman Robert Michael Torres Reed, United States Air Force. Major Roy Ezra Carlton, United States Army. Specialist Matthew Scott Rhodes, United States Army. Specialist Luke P. Friss, United States Army Reserve. Petty Officer Second Class Timothy John Cal Gagnon, United States Navy. Master Sergeant David Harold Patterson Jr., United States Air Force. PFC Jesse D. Meisner, United States Army. Sergeant First Class Albert Koltsar, United States Army. Chief Warrant Officer Second Philip A. Johnson Jr., United States Army. Sergeant Michael A. DiRaimondo, United States Army. Chief Warrant Officer Second Aaron A. Weaver, United States Army. Chief Warrant Officer 2, Ian D. Manuel, United States Army. Specialist Nathaniel H. Johnson, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Craig Davis, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Jeffrey Calvin Walker, United States Army. Sergeant Christopher A. Golby, United States Army. Sergeant First Class Gregory B. Hicks, United States Army. Sergeant Jeffrey C. Walker, United States Army. Sergeant Roy A. Wood, United States Army. Sergeant Carl Tremel Jones, United States Army. Specialist Dolores Miles Thomas, United States Army. Petty Officer First Class Anthony Leonard Garner, United States Navy. Sergeant Chad Wesley Parker, United States Army. Master Sergeant William Clinton Simmons, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Dean Dave Voss, United States Air Force. Staff Sergeant Ricky L. Crockett, United States Army. Specialist Alexis Antonio Soto Ramirez, United States Army.
Captain Tiffany Quiniqua Burns, United States Army. Lance Corporal Joshua John Rhodes, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Ellie Angeline Magruder, United States Army. Sergeant Keisha M. Hines, United States Army. Sergeant First Class Thomas Joseph Kemp, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Roland L. Castro, United States Army. Senior Airman Robin Nathaniel Qualls, United States Air Force. Private First Class Cody J. Orr, United States Army. Sergeant Edmund Lee Randall Jr., United States Army. Specialist Larry E. Polly Jr., United States Army. Specialist Jeremy Shannon Seeley, United States Army. Sergeant First Class Vicky Sue Pascal, United States Army. Petty Officer Third Class German Almanzo Watson, United States Navy. Lieutenant Commander Charles Edward Radosta, United States Navy. Master Sergeant Kelly L. Hornbeck, United States Army. Private Jordan David Treadway, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer Third Class Marcus Eugene Mills, United States Navy. Captain Robert Duncan Andrews, United States Air Force. Petty Officer Third Class Hermino Sales Penetrante, United States Navy. Specialist Gabriel T. Palacios, United States Army. Private First Class James D. Parker, United States Army. Specialist Daniel O'Brien, United States Army. Corporal Joshua David Harris, United States Marine Corps. Captain Adam Edward Miller, United States Marine Corps. Captain Michael Seamus Lawler, United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Lori Ann Prevette, United States Marine Corps. Private Donald Timothy Stillion, United States Army. Sergeant First Class Michael Otto Stradinger, United States Army. Petty Officer Third Class Paul Andrew McLeod, United States Navy. Specialist Zachary Houston Thomas, United States Army. Chief Warrant Officer 2, Brian D. Hazelgrove, United States Army. Chief Warrant Officer 2, Michael T. Blaze, United States Army. Specialist Christian Paul Roman, United States Army. Petty Officer First Class Michael Sean Bryant, United States Navy.
Staff Sergeant Dwayne Jerome Mutin, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Harold Alexander Zellers, United States Army. Specialist Jason K. Chappelle, United States Army. Sergeant Keith L. Smith, United States Army National Guard. Sergeant Kenneth W. Hendrickson, United States Army National Guard. Sergeant Randy S. Rosenberg, United States Army. Specialist William R. Sturgis Jr., United States Army. Petty Officer Third Class Joshua Michael Maurer, United States Navy. First Lieutenant Adam G. Mooney, United States Army. Chief Warrant Officer 2 Patrick D. Dorff, United States Army. Private First Class Everin Dervershi, United States Army. Sergeant Christopher Bunda, United States Army. Private First Class Eric Stanley Hartle, United States Army. Specialist Luke Clark Mallory, United States Army. Captain John Earl Mayers, United States Navy. Specialist First Class James T. Hoffman, United States Army. Sergeant Corey R. Marnick, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Lester O. Kinney II, United States Army. Second Lieutenant Luke S. James, United States Army. Sergeant Travis A. Muthart, United States Army. Captain Matthew J. August, United States Army. Seaman Apprentice George Christopher Schultz, United States Navy. Specialist First Class Georgina Ellenberger, United States Army. Specialist Adam J. Kinsner, United States Army Reserve. Sergeant Benjamin J. Gilman, United States Army. Sergeant First Class Curtis Mancini, United States Army Reserve. Specialist Justin A. Scott, United States Army. Staff Sergeant James D. Mauris, United States Army Reserve. Staff Sergeant Sean M. Clemens, United States Army. Sergeant Dayton K. Settinger, United States Army Reserve. Specialist Roger J. Cook, United States Army. Private First Class Louis A. Moreno, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Sean G. Landris, United States Army. Sergeant First Class Everett Baggett Jr., United States Army.
Senior Airman Christopher Allen Pedrulli, United States Air Force. Staff Sergeant Philip Andrew Wiska, United States Air Force. Sergeant Ilu A. Mirsandoval, United States Army. Corporal Juan C. Cabral Buenelos, United States Army. Private First Class Holly J. McHugh, United States Army. Chief Petty Officer Donald James Pando Jr., United States Navy. Private First Class Armando Soriano, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Roger C. Turner Jr., United States Army. Airman Jamonte Chavallo Washington II, United States Air Force. Steve, can we please have your family stand? Private First Class Eric Stephen Weinrich, United States Army.
Petty Officer David Allen Miller, United States Navy. Lance Corporal Anand Dominic Millette, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Brahim William Robinson, United States Army. Second Lieutenant Seth J. Doran, United States Army. Major Daniel Richard Dempsey, Jr., United States Army. Specialist Billy Jess Watts, United States Army. Specialist Joshua L. Knowles, United States Army National Guard. Airman First Class Walter James Hammond IV, United States Air Force. Petty Officer Francisco Ruben Giral, United States Navy. Specialist Pedro Albert Consolacion, United States Army. Specialist Carla Yedith River Melendez, United States Army. Private John Anthony Rogers, United States Army. Private Calvin Levi Dunnigan, United States Army. Petty Officer Jared Yando, United States Navy. Petty Officer Michael Brady Miller, United States Navy. Master Sergeant Richard Dean O'Brien, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Richard P. Ramey, United States Army. Master Sergeant Richard Dean Bryan, United States Army. Senior Airman Tara K. Taylor, United States Air Force. Petty Officer Third Class Ralph Luis Keller, United States Navy. Sergeant Elijah Tai Wah Wong, United States Army National Guard. Sergeant Thomas D. Robbins, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Angelo Francis Iacona, United States Army. Petty Officer Michael Harold Noshel, United States Navy. Master Sergeant Jude C. Mariano, United States Air Force. Chief Petty Officer Scott Andrew Bergion, United States Navy. Sergeant Patrick S. Tinch, United States Army. Private First Class William C. Ramirez, United States Army. Sergeant Stephen Glenn McFarland, United States Army. Specialist Eric U. Ramirez, United States Army National Guard. Lance Corporal Vanessa Monet Messner, United States Marine Corps. Private First Class Christopher Darnell Campbell, United States Army. Sergeant Emery D. Nayeki, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Shanta Bridges, United States Army. Specialist Jason Joseph Bordwell, United States Army. Sergeant John Michael Sir Will, United States Army. Specialist Jeremy Russell Smith, United States Army. Special Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, Mark Allen Lane, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Cord Brandel Correa, United States Army. Sergeant Nicholas Darwin Golding, United States Army. Specialist Samuel Jacob Barbetta, United States Army. Corporal Stephen Allen Dunham, United States Marine Corps. Private Brian N. Spry, United States Army. Tech Sergeant Charles Lawrence Snyder, United States Air Force. Chief Petty Officer Paul David Fitzsimmons, United States Navy. Sergeant First Class James Robert Mayle, United States Army. Airman First Class Paul Alvin Hawkins Jr., United States Air Force. First Lieutenant Russell Neville Bates, United States Marine Corps. Specialist Christopher M. Taylor, United States Army National Guard. Sergeant Michael M. Marilla, United States Army. Private First Class Nicole M. Fry, United States Army Reserves. Specialist Adam Jared Phillips, United States Army. Master Sergeant Randall V. Parker, United States Army. Specialist William Joseph Savannah III, United States Army. Corporal Adam Scott Lipford, United States Marine Corps. Master Chief Petty Officer Michael Anthony Scott, United States Navy. Specialist Christopher John Biancardi, United States Army.
Cadet Jeremiah James Gray. Oh, United States Navy. Private Randolph Wayne Leibel, United States Army. Second Lieutenant Jeffrey Graham, United States Army. Specialist Roger G. Ling, United States Army. Specialist Albert Jacob Hepner, United States Army. Specialist James Murphy Pelton, United States Army. Senior First Class Henry A. Bacon, United States Army. Sergeant James Otis Sibley, United States Army.
I have 201 names that we ran for today, spanning a time of December 23rd of February.
December 28th of 2003 to February 20th of 2004.
One of the things before we conclude is we are about remembrance. And it really doesn't matter the generation of loss, but after we've read the names of those that we're running for, I'd like to give an opportunity for those in the room to call out loud the name of a family member, a friend, a neighbor, a post member, someone in the area, anyone whose name was not called out loud by our list. And it really doesn't matter to us what era that may be. If you know the name and you would like to call that name out loud, then we invite you to do it now at this moment before we conclude. So don't be shy at all.
Spencer Carroll, United States Army.
Damian Montoya, United States Army.
Gary, Army.
United States Army.
Rick Ryan, Army, 1968.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Robert Kennedy,
Go ahead.
United States Army. Robert Kennedy,
Thank you.
U.S. Marine Corps.
Thank you. Steve?
I have two. My wife's father, Sergeant Charles Lau, just in the Air Corps. My father, granddaughter, Paul's Wendell, this Army.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead, Augie.
We have three. Larry Marconi, United States Marines. He's 72. And my father, Augustine Marconi, World War II. He's a sergeant. And he's in the Army. And then our son, Joseph Robert Marconi, United States Marine Corps, 2006.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
PFC Michael Lau, who's in Vietnam.
Brand,
Army.
United States Army. be anyone. Yes, ma'am.
Major Buddy F. Jones, Air Force. Father.
Guy Ager, United States Air Force. Joe Morris, he's United States Marine Corps, Navajo Code Talker.
Anyone else?
I have three. George Cook, Marine Corps, World War II, Navajo Code Talker. Lemuel Yazzie, Marine Corps, World War II, Navajo Code Talker. And my dad, Key Brown, Army, World War II.
Yes, sir.
I would like to acknowledge my father, who is amongst the living of the veterans, World War II veteran, medic in the Army, who just celebrated his 100th birthday on Pearl Harbor Day. So,
What is his name?
Paul Williams.
Thank you. If we could just a moment of silence, just to think about the accomplishments of the day, the 201 service members we ran for, and those mentioned in this room, and just reflect on those names and the significance that each one had on each one of us in their own life. Amen.
Amen.
George, would everybody in the room join me in wishing this lady happy 40th anniversary being married to me?
I want to thank everyone again for your amazing hospitality. I mean, I can't thank you enough, and I'm sure I speak for all the crew and the runners, you know, as grateful as we are to be able to come and just hang out with you for a little while and have an amazing meal. You know, we don't do this without, without some expenses to us, and this is no obligation, but we do have some t-shirts up here and some other little things. If anybody has any interest, you know, please come up and get something. It will help us move on to the next town, put some gas in our cars. But other than that, that's it for us, and God bless you guys for allowing us to be a part of your evening.
I could